Welcome. If you are on this YouTube channel, website, or watching this video, it's because somewhere you heard, saw, read something telling you to come here, or text my number. This is for connected individuals. Actually, that's what they call themselves on the other side. This is for targeted individuals, as they call us. But I'd like us to be connected. You may think that you belong to a group called the electronic harassment, or the electronically harassed. You may call yourself a targeted individual, or an electronically sensitive individual. Terms such as UV light, directed energy weapons, soft kills, electronic harassment, extremely high frequency or EHF weapons, low frequency weapons, radio wave weapons, microwave weapons, and then just energy weapons. You may have heard adrenochrome. You may have heard Phoenix Program or Phoenix Project or New Phoenix Project, Monarch, Agenda 2030, of course the New World Order. Now, these are just some keywords and terms you may have heard that may connect you to the reason that you're on this video and website or YouTube channel. But really, I want to connect you because you may or may not be a targeted individual or a connected individual who has a heart and soul, or wants to reach out, or feels bad about what they're doing and wants to connect with somebody who is being tortured and harassed, such as myself. Other pertinent keywords you may have heard of are pedivore, or ritualistic and cannibalistic, satanic, adrenochrome extraction, and or sexual deviancies. I don't know if you've noticed the abandoned schools because of COVID, and how all of them are shut down with no trespassing signs, not allowing anybody on the property under threat of felony trespass, and actual governmental warning signs, as well as major construction going on internally at the schools. I don't know if you've noticed giant piles of clothes and other belongings, almost like someone's entire household of belongings, especially shoes, single shoes, kids' toys, piled up at donation centers, outside Goodwills, the donation boxes in parking lots, on the side of the road, in the forests, almost where you'd think there would be homeless camps, but they aren't homeless camps because it's all brand new, nice clothing and electronics and whatnot, piled up and just dumped. Individuals gaining new cars, maybe weekly, bi-weekly, scrubbing, cleaning out those cars. During the weekend, go out in public, there's no one at the movies, there's no one at the parks, there's no one at the mall, there's no one at the restaurants. The freeways are empty, the streets are empty, nobody's outside, nobody's inside out in public. But also in the neighborhoods and the apartment complexes, it's vacant, abandoned. Nights such as tonight, Saturday night, most of the homes in the background of the neighborhood here are all black, the lights are off. Only if entire families had blackout curtains or power outage and just sat in their basement watching TV in silence would this seem like it is today. If they're not home and they're not in public, where are they? They're not at school, they're not at the parks, where are they? They're not on the roads, they're not out and about, they're not camping, where are they? If you've noticed an increase in people's deaths and or disappearances, but just shrugged it off, thinking, oh, quarantine, oh, curfew, oh, it's because of COVID. Everybody's social distancing, keeping themselves locked away, not communicating and or meeting in person. That's why you haven't seen your friends. That's why you haven't seen as many people out and about. But then again, people aren't posting the way they were on Facebook either, or messaging, and when they are, it doesn't sound like them, in the sense they're using different words, phrases, phraseology. The way they speak is off. It's not quite how you remember them, or the way you remember them. People have disappeared, noticeably disappeared, as in missing persons. They've had major health problems, such as cancer, heart attack, stroke, leaving them locked away even further, medically speaking, so you won't see them in person, or have even deceased or died. People have left the country, got new jobs, moved away. There's been an increase in suicides, overdoses, people going to prison for long periods of time, rehab for long periods of time, or just overall deaths, or being gone, taken away from your life, physically speaking. Is this true? Have you noticed this? If so, that's why you're here. There's many reasons you're here. Have you noticed the homeless populations, the ones you'd see downtown and or around town? Have you noticed that those populations are not spread out and not in great numbers as they used to be? And the ones that you did see, the homeless individuals themselves, were almost not so much clean shaven, where they still seemed to have gray or scraggly hair, but it looked washed. It looked trimmed, neat. It looked like the clothes they were wearing were clean, washed, or new. The tents that they had were all grouped together, and they were clean, washed, and new. It was odd because all of them had tarps over them, were neat and organized. The homeless camps were not a mess. There weren't things thrashed about, thrown about like usual. And they weren't staying up all night, yelling, making noises, being obscene, pissing or shitting in public. They aren't leaving syringes and cigarette butts everywhere. The ashtrays are empty. You actually see cans littered across the city and the town, when before that's all they did to make money was collect cans, and you wouldn't have a can in sight on the ground, let alone in a trash can or anywhere whatsoever. The ashtrays aren't full at all. That's not because they're pulling out the cigarette butts to smoke. Actually, it's because no one is smoking at all, have you noticed or not? If you have, that's why you're here. Specifically speaking, in the urban and inner city areas like Portland and downtown Portland on the east side. Strip clubs say they're open, but no one ever seems to be in the parking lot. When you go out of the main population-based areas or the places that you frequent, have you noticed that people just, for whatever reason, tend to not wear face masks? Not only are they not wearing face masks, but they're in large groups, and they're all, in a sense of the word, not social distancing, touching one another, hugging, playing games in the park, playing sports, acting as if there's nothing wrong or nothing going on whatsoever. Have you also, despite the announced and publicized deaths and hospitalization and sickness counts, been to any of the hospitals? I have. I'm into 4 of the major hospitals around the Portland metro area. And yeah, it looks like there's less doctors working. The parking lots were almost empty. They hardly let you into the hospital unless you are sick yourself. There's only 1 visitor per day, per person, if it is a major or life-threatening surgery or ailment. Speaking of which, in the hospitals, because I went more myself for a skin lesion that I had taken care of a few months back, and then once again for a follow-up, it was almost vacant. There's no waiting line, there's no overcrowding. This is at 4 out of the 5 major hospitals in this metropolitan area. COVID testing centers, there's no lines. Actually, they were completely vacant, besides the 2 individuals at the front letting people in. The funeral homes are not overrun. The graves and or crematoriums aren't even open as essential businesses. There's no new headstones or flowers on the graves. Have you noticed any of this? Not saying that COVID-19 does not exist. Not saying that it was man-made either. From what I have spoken or heard and spoken to and overheard as an eavesdrop, was that it was not man-made either. But a mutation hurried along, possibly in lab form, hurried along, ushered along in the sense of where tens, if not decades of mutations and evolving of a virus hastened or made to happen a lot quicker in a laboratory setting, then released, possibly used as a mask to shut down the giant population bases in the sense of curfew and or mandatory quarantine, keeping people off the streets and or away from one another. I don't know if you've noticed a major increase in not only the major and large airports, but the small and only non-commercial airports. 747, 737, 777, other jumbo jet, and major mass large passenger jumbo jet airlines coming in, especially at night and overnight. In one sense, Hillsboro, Oregon Airport, seeing one come in every 10 to 15 minutes over the course of 5 hours. These being 777, cascading down to the 737s, 200 to 500 at the largest passenger jumbo jets. That and the militarization and military and or convoy vehicles coming into from ports, not out and exporting to the ports to be shipped out, but coming in to, as in like country center, state center, coming from ocean and river ports, Humvees, tanks, other military vehicles and whatnot. These always happening at night and always by train. There's also been major convoys of unmarked semis and giant semis, extra load. 3 are connected trailers. These always coming after midnight and only on major freeways after curfew times. All individuals driving Ubers, all individuals you stumble across in the parks. Not all, of course, but the majority are either foreign, refugee, immigrant, or brought in the sense of the city I live in to work at places such as Intel. Their actions and mannerisms in English language is pristine, grammatically speaking, but everything else seems forced, including anything as such as their laughter at jokes you may make. They seem unaware and unscathed by what is going on in the sense of the virus. Not so much fact-based as everything else I've been saying, but continue to listen. It's why you're here. If you noticed people getting time shaved off their sentences, people getting released from jail and prison because they tested positive for COVID, even though they exhibit no symptoms, even with them being over the age where symptoms just start to begin to be exhibited. This age past toddlers. These masks aren't even required for many young children, infants, because they don't not only not exhibit symptoms, but are almost unaffected by COVID, and instead work as vessels to spread it. This is something that could be manufactured specifically in a lab, a specific aspect created to possibly target older and or vulnerable individuals. In the next video, I'm going to go more in depth on the controversial aspects of everything I was just saying. I just spoke of the less controversial and less striking and or more believable aspects, and believable in the sense of it not being outlandish, crazy, or too unheard of already. The next video will be delving into also fact-based and evidence-based testimony, documentation, and other thoughts that I will be presenting to you, but more so on the controversial and fringe at the end of the video. I perhaps actually will make a third video for the fringe, not so much fact-based, but hypothetical conjecture and my own, not conspiracy quite. That could be yet a third video, or sorry, fourth video. The second one will still be fact-based, but more unbelievable in the sense, like I said, of it not being necessarily things that happen on the day-to-day. Also, if you click below, you will be linked to a video detailing things that I know and need to get out before I'm unable to, for whatever reason.